God, I think so.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Joe, and I'm gonna...
You know, before I forget, you know, there's something else, a special day. You know, I was born on Carmine Street, and the last lecture I said, you know, it's good to be home. And there's something about walking into New York City, and it brings you alive. It makes you alive. And, you know, you can't be bored in New York City. You really can't be bored, you know. It's just such a, it's the greatest city in the world. And I've been around the world 2 or 3 times, but you really can't, you can't hardly beat that. What I'm going to do before we forget is I'm going to pass these out, and I'm praying, please take one, okay? I hope we have enough. If it gets to the back and there aren't enough, then I'll give you something else, and I'll tell you what that is once you pass them out. So I've been a working photographer for 5 decades, and I love what I do. I get up every morning with a smile on my face, and life is good. And one time I walked into the studio, and my studio manager was in the corner just kind of hanging out, and she was laughing so hard I thought she was going to wet herself. And she was reading an article that was in Europe, and I said, "Why are you laughing?" He goes, "I can't believe this line." He goes, "What's the line?" He goes, "DiMaggio wakes up every morning with a smile on his face." He goes, "You gotta be kidding me." So I said, "Let me explain something to you. I get up at 5 o'clock, I'm smiling. You get here at 12 o'clock. By that time, I've talked to 4 or 5 clients, and I'm in a lousy mood." I said, "So, you know, in the morning, I'm smiling, but now I'm not smiling." We're supposed to talk about the 7 essential secrets of outstanding photography. Okay, we're all adults here. Does anybody believe that? Please, you don't really believe there are 7 anything, you know, really. I mean, we're going to talk about things that I do that I may consider a secret, but you know what? They're not secrets. Before we do that, I want to do this. I was going through a desk, and I found this. Happened to be my father's camera. And I noticed that it had 4 features. Let's see what the features are. Advance, fire, advance, fire, advance, fire. That's a feature. Well, then it's at aperture. Aperture. You know the round thing? It's got that. Oh, you know what else it has? Hold on. It's got shutter speeds. Isn't that amazing? It's got shutter speeds. Let's see. Aperture, shutter speed, advance, fire, focus. That's what a camera does. Mm-hmm. This is a camera. We, everybody in this room, I presume the majority of us have a digital camera. That camera is not a camera. It's a computer. That's what it is. We, as photographers, sometimes forget what the operation is about. Advance the film, shutter speed, aperture, focus. Once you get into a modern $79 to $7,999 digital camera, you have so many options, and the options can make you crazy, okay? Well, should I put it on auto white balance, or should I put it on 46K, or should I put it on 32K? And really, do I know the difference between 32K and 46K? And should I put it on faithful or standard, or if I'm on this, will it, you know, how many, you know? And the point being that, are the cameras great? I hate to say this. The new digital cameras are better, 99.9999999% better than any of these cameras. They are. But what you have to do, in my opinion, you don't have to do it, but that's what I do, is go back to basics. Fundamental shutter speed, aperture, focus, and push the button. okay? And let's forget about all of the ramifications you can get involved in. I have a very dear friend at Canon who knows more about photography than I will ever know in 500 years. And I go to him and I say, I'm really having problems getting from this to that, that. And he explains it, and he sends me like a 6-page email on how to do it. And in the final analysis, you know what? Shutter speed, aperture, focus, push the button. That's really what it's all about. So if the first secret is, let's go back to basics. Let's think about what we're doing. Let's go, even if you're 18 years old, you know, at RIT, they're still trying to teach Tri-X and D76. Okay, they really are still doing that. So you want to kind of remember that. That's kind of important. So we'll get rid of this. One of the things that I found is, if you're walking down the street and you see something, you see a shaft of light from a building. There's 2 buildings, and there's a shaft of light that comes through those 2 buildings. And you go, wow, that's cool. That's really cool. Make the photograph then, right now. So you know what? I've got to go into La Patisseria and pick up a bread. When I come back, I'll shoot it. Wrong. It's gone. It's not going to be there. So secret number 1 is, when you see something, pick the camera up and make the photograph. Make it now. Make it then. Be careful. This, by the way, is not a joke. This is not part of the shtick we were doing a couple of minutes ago. Make sure you know when you're composing the photograph that you're not going to walk into the middle of 7th Avenue in front of a bus. No, I'm not. That's not. I'm being like really serious for a minute. Be aware that how you make your moves, left, right, being backing up. I have made mistakes, and that it's not pretty. It's not a pretty mistake. Okay. So I think that that's critical. Make the photograph. When you see the photograph, it will go away. The most beautiful part about photography, it only lasts for 1/8,000th of a second or 1/100th of a second. It doesn't last eternity. I mean, if you've ever seen a rainbow, they don't last long. So you've got to make the photograph. You've got to make it immediately. The immediacy of a photograph. Now, of course, my studio manager managed to put the "of" in front of the most important part of the photograph, but we'll show that later. I walk in, oh, that's not there. Okay, we're gonna go back to that. See a bunch of birds, okay? Again, make the photograph. They're not gonna be there for any length of time. We're gonna go back to the ice in a little bit. We just had a trip to Cuba. I hadn't been there in 20 years, and Cuba has changed radically. The point is, this is not what we call a setup shot. I didn't set this up. I didn't tell the gentleman, lift up the bananas, and I believe that could be medicine, or I don't know what it is. I don't know what is in his hands, but he just looked at me and he raised, I picked the camera up, 1 frame. Not 35 frames, not the camera on 12 shots per whatever continuous. 99% of everything that I do is 1 frame. 99%. I very rarely put it on continuous. When I photograph a heavyweight championship boxing match, 1 frame at a time. I don't put it on 12 frames a second. I'm looking for the one particular photograph. That's what I'm looking for. Sometimes when you try and overshoot something, all of the great photographs, you know where they are? They're in that black spot, in between the lines, you know? That's where the great photos are. So what you need to do is just kind of calm down, study, do your pre-production, learn what it's all about, and make the photographs. So it was just something that I kind of liked. Reflections, again, same thing. You're walking along, you see a reflection. You know what? Light travels. How far is the sun from from Earth?
96 million.
96 million miles. People go crazy with exposure. 96 million miles. The exposure on 57th Street and 7th Avenue is pretty close to the same. It may be a half a stop, 3/4 of a stop. If you pre-select a shutter speed and an aperture that you're comfortable with, okay, that you're comfortable with, that you know is going to put you in the ballpark, pre-select it. If you know you're going to be looking for a portrait of a person and your shooting distance is 6 feet, pre-select 6 feet. Look at it, put it at 6 feet. If you know that you want to do a portrait in a vertical, move the camera to a vertical. So you're ready to make it. So when you pick it up, all you have to hear is the eek, that one little eek if you're going to be on autofocus, and you're there. Bang, bang, and you make your insurance shot, and that works pretty well. The concept here is we're talking about light. And we started to talk about how much light is available. The most important thing, especially in digital photography, is we're now able to do things we could never, never, never do in the 60s or the 70s. It just virtually impossible. When you can go to 3200, 6400, but this is a musician at rest, he's at a keyboard, and I just took one look, and he's got one light on him, just one light, and I fell in love with it, okay? So it's not manipulated, it's not cropped or anything like that. So when people complain, well, there's not enough light, there's not enough this, there's enough light for everything. And if you look at it on this screen, it looks 1,000 times better than this screen here. And when you look at it in my computer, it's fabulous. Again, the volume of light that's available. Obviously, this was taken in film, and how do we know that? Because there's the World Trade Center. And the World Trade Center, in those days, I had my police press badge, and I could go up onto the RCA building and make a photograph anytime I wanted. Brooklyn Bridge, I don't know how many times I photographed it, but a lot of times. Manhattan Bridge, same thing. One of the things that I was blessed to learn by my mentors, my teachers over the years, especially the guys from Life, I come from the school of less is more. Someone did a portrait of me one time, and I was sitting in a studio, and they brought a palm tree in next to me, and then a fern. And I'm going, what, are you kidding me? I mean, just that's what I need, is a palm tree and a fern sticking out of parts of my body. So simple, very simple, very clean, very elegant. Now, people say, how do you make an exposure for this type of a photograph? There are no wrong exposures for this. If you shot it a stop and a half over, what we would call it is high key. If you shot it a stop and a half under, we'd call it, it's got some tonality and depth to it. It's almost impossible to make a bad photo. Once you have the composition, once you have the structure, once you have the positioning, I expect you not to bracket, but to experiment, okay? You should all have a basic fundamental exposure that you know from what we talked about before, okay? A 500 at 5.6, f8, a 250th of a second, f8, ISO 100, okay? You may not want to shoot at f8, so you'll go to a 1500 at 2.8, okay? This lens doesn't go to 2.8. So once you've got that basic information, then you need to remember it, okay? Simple, clean, elegant. Don't get too crazy. Talking about light, the way we see light. The amount of light here is enough to light up half of New York City. Situations, lightning. At one point, I lived on the sea for about 20 years, and I absolutely loved lightning. So played with lightning an awful lot. Lightning requires nothing more than a black card, the camera in a stationary position. Doesn't have to be on a tripod. It just has to be locked in a windowsill and any place where no water will actually pour on it. Could you put it on a tripod? Sure. Can you put an umbrella over it? Sure. You could do any of those things, but the black card is something that you want to be able to put in front of the lens. Leave the lens open. The lens goes on B for open, and just drop this in front. And when there's no lightning, you sit there and you have your Rob Roy, your martini, whatever, your beer. And then when you hear the lightning, when you hear the thunder, you know you're approximately maybe 5 to 8 seconds from a flash, depending on how far away it is. If it's 10 seconds, you know it's about 10 miles away. Then you can lift it on 8, you'll get your flash and put it back. Very, very simple, very easy. You know, one of my first jobs at 12 years old was to work for a German photographer. And I thought I had a great job. And until he told me the first thing I had to do was clean the bathroom. So I did that for about a week, and then I got to clean the darkroom. So you build your way up into into getting to maybe loading a piece of film into a carrier. So composition, theory of thirds. This has been around for literally thousands of years. My feeling as far as composition is concerned, you make it up as you go along. You make it up. You change it up. Okay? If you want to go with the basic fundamental rules, fine. If you don't, change it up. Just change it up. And I think you'll be happy with some of the changes. Or I would hope you are. When you're tight, get tighter. There's no such thing as being too tight. You can't be too tight. Nobody in their right mind is going to shoot an environmental portrait with an 18 millimeter lens. Nobody. You got to be out of your mind to do an environmental portrait with an 18 millimeter lens. But I've done Bobby's, I guess, 6, 7 album covers. And finally I decided I'm getting really tired of shooting same old, same old. So this is an 18 millimeter lens, and we were just looking for something a little bit different. Try it. The worst thing you can do, the best thing you have on your computer, you know what that is? It's the delete button. You can always throw it out if you don't like it. In this particular case, this was one of Willie Nelson's players. And the one thing that I fixated on more than anything was not the blue jean jacket, wasn't the red shirt, wasn't the mustache. The only thing I fixated on was the eye closest to the camera. Now that's the smallest thing in the frame. You can't get anything smaller than that little eye. But for me, that was the composition. That's the way I wanted it to work. You may look at it and go, the eye's too small, it just doesn't work for me. It worked for me. The only person that I'm trying to satisfy is Joe DiMaggio. Now, if this was done for Budweiser, and the art director for Budweiser or Shenley's or Ford Motor Company said, I don't like that eye, it's too small, then I would change it for him. You know why? He's paying me. And there's the whole band.
Is that with your 18 millimeter?
This is not. This was done with a 35-1.4, not 18. And in my studio, I built in a trap door so I could shoot straight down on people. So they're directly below me. Again, so you have a different perspective. I put this in for no particular reason. I have no reason to put it in. I was going through a bunch of slides, or what I call slides. I keep calling them slides. and it's a flying field where I run and walk my dog, and we were just leaving and the sun was going down, and I just said, I just liked it. So I had one of those little, 70Ds with the built-in flash, and I just thought it would make a cute little photo. No particular reason. I liked it. This is something, again, I was taking a walk, no assignment, and I'm looking at this bridge, and then I'm looking, and I didn't see the reflection because I'm fixated on the bridge. I didn't see the reflection. And a lot of times what we do is we fixate on something, and then we miss everything else, okay? We miss things. What's the first thing that I had to learn as a photographer? The first thing was, when you look, what's your first name?
John.
John. When I look at John, I don't see John. I see an 1 by 1.5 inch format. Now John's got his glasses in the down position. Works for me because in that position now I have his eyes. So I don't have to shoot through glass. I have his eyes. So I say, that's pretty good. But the one thing we don't want to do with a dog, a cat, a moose, or John or Joe is we don't want to shoot down on them. So what we need to do is we need to get to be here, but I still can see his eyes. So I can make his glasses out of focus at 2.8 or 2, and the eyes tack sharp, and I look at him in a horizontal position, which you normally wouldn't do with a portrait. You wouldn't look at him and say it's horizontal, but for him it works, okay? Good, right? Bad. Let me tell you why it's bad. Because I'm not looking at John. I'm looking at the S word, which I don't use. I don't like the S word. A lot of people use the S word. You know what the S word is? Somebody knows. Say the S word. Subject. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like subject. I like John. Call John who John is. You know what I'm saying? I don't like the S word. A lot of photographers use subject. God bless them. I'm not going to. Look, by the way, something I need to tell you. Everything that comes out of my mouth is not law. It's my opinion. If you do it different, fine. Okay? But that's what I see. So when I looked at this, all I could see was this. I didn't see this, I didn't see this, and I didn't see the reflection. So after I took one frame, I took a step back and I looked at it and I said, oh my goodness, there's more there than meets the eye. So it's up to you as the person who's going to make the photograph. That's your job. If you've decided to pick the camera up, if you made that decision, then by God, pick it up and make the photograph, and then make 3, 4, or 5 different photographs by moving, relocating your position, okay? And you'll become a better photographer. The purpose of what B&H, what's kind of interesting about B&H, they have a history. It's, I think, close to 29-year history of not only selling cameras. Anybody can sell cameras, anybody. There's no secret. They're all the same bloody price, so what's it? But they're really into photo education. And they're concerned about your ability to become a better photographer. I'm concerned. My teachers, W. Gene Smith, Alfred Eisenstadt, John Dominus, people like that, the information that they gave me was to pass it along to other people. That's my job, is to pass it along to other people. And occasionally make a reasonable photograph. Not too often. Now, every once in a while, I don't set up too many photos, but my cat, I love my cat, and I just was getting ready to make a martini. And I was washing the glass, and then I said, oh, and the cat's watching me do this, and I said, well, so I decided to put a goldfish in there. He thought it was pretty funny. No, he never got the fish. We never let him get the fish. No, that's just two fish. Well, why? Because I thought if one fish was good, two fish was better. But that goes against my rule, less is more, so we had to take the fish out. The reason this is in is we were in Croatia, and this cat was sitting under the table where we were having lunch. And the concept here is to get down, change your position. For maybe two people here, there's only two people in this room that know what belly button perspective is, right? Belly button perspective is this. When you're shooting with a 2 1/4 square camera, you look down, so everything you were shooting from was literally from your belly button. So now everything is from this position in a horizontal format, and it's an eye position. So what I try to do is break this up. Love photographing children. That's my Papalopus. That's my dog, Ace. Again, get very, very low. That bridge, boy. Again, just trying to come up with, just make less is more. You don't need a lot of things happening. Simple, clean, elegant. Simple, clean, elegant. This is one of my favorite photos because it was taken just recently. And it's just very clean, okay? Lots and lots of negative space. I love negative space, I really do. I like the idea of not having a lot of things growing all over the place. This is one of my assistants. She just moved to Berlin and is making quite a career as a photographer. California. Look at the snow drifts. Just the ability to get along with people. You will know instantly if they don't want their photo taken. But if you think about it, it's a privilege to have you know, because you find something interesting about that person. Hugh Brody, one of the greatest horn players of our time. I was having lunch in Tel Aviv, and my brother lives in Jerusalem. And I guess I'm never big on the drive. You know, my brother from another mother, but Amir Orly, and he introduced me to his father, and we were just sitting there having lunch, and I fell in love with him. I mean, it was like Jimmy Durante all over again, you know. I mean, I just love the guy. And he you know the difference. Real smile. He does have great teeth. He talks about 48, and I'm going, oh yeah, 48. I remember 48. 48. Pete, I can't tell you how much I love the guy. My partner Joanne Kalish and myself had the privilege of photographing his last concert, and Sochi was there, and So she passed, I guess, 12 days later, and then Pete passed, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. And I got an email from a Buddhist magazine, and several of my friends are Buddhist, and they said they wanted to put this on the back cover, and I said, well, Pete wasn't a Buddhist, and they said, we don't care. But the concept, if you read it, what is it? Who can read that?
This machine surrounds fate.
Yeah. So they wanted to. So I said, yes, and I said, and how much are you going to pay for it? And they said, blessings. I said, well, I need 100 blessings. Okay. So David said to me, you got to teach these people tricks. And in my mind, I'm going, there's no tricks. In this building, they sell tape. It's called photo tape, black tape. If you don't own a roll of black tape, buy it. But it's not duct tape. It's totally different than duct tape. But buy the smallest roll. Do not buy the big roll, because you don't want to take the big roll to Baja California. You want to take the small roll. So buy the small roll. It comes in very, very handy. So, notice, photograph of Cuban kids playing baseball. Well, what's the thing on the sides? It's the lens shade. And the lens shade is that way because the idiot forgot to tape it down. Got it? Idiot. So you take a little piece of that tape and you tape it down. At the end of the night, you want to take it off, you rip it off, you put another piece of tape on it.
I do it all the time.
Thank you. John does it all the time because a couple of things. Number one, some of those lens shades are $200, $300, and $400. Okay? Now, this is my 201.8. Notice the volume of tape on the lens. It is there because I don't want that to fall off. That bloody thing, right now on the internet, they go for around $500 because they don't make the lens anymore. So you want to make sure when you're in the Staten Island ferry, you don't hear the famous ding. Ding, as it goes into the water, and there's $5 $100 bills. So, and I come from the school of, if a little bit of tape is good, a lot of tape is better. See, so I don't fool around with the tape. It doesn't leave a residue. If you buy that stuff, it doesn't leave a residue. Duct tape, oh, that leaves a residue. These things, these are your tips. So we get the tips out of the way so people go, well, he didn't even give us the 7 tips. These, I don't know, I think they're $5, okay? You got to buy these. You have to. I don't care. You got to buy them because to clean a lens, you blow it off, put this on, and then clean it with this. Okay? Blow it off, this, and then this. Never in a circle. Never in a circle. Never, never, never. Always like this. Never in a circle. You don't want to do this. We're not looking to make circles on our lenses, okay? Okay. Now you remember seeing photographs of men with 4x5, 8x10 cameras with the hoods. They're making a comeback. They really are. To look at your film on the road or in the car while you're parked, or if you're actually shooting video, you can buy them. They are cheap as chips. You can go to Joann's Fabrics and get them there and just buy a piece of it and keep it with you. I mean, it'll fit in your pocket like a handkerchief, okay? And if you're eating a McDonald's in the car, you could use it as a bib. So you don't get anything on your clothes. That works too. Anybody who doesn't carry a black card or black aluminum foil, you need to do this. You need to carry just a piece, 8 by 10, to throw an additional shade over the lens when you're shooting backlit. Because the majority of what I do is backlight, okay? This, in my opinion, I don't think they sell it here. I don't think they sell it here, but this is material that you lay down on something and it grips. You could use it for a jar or something like that. What I use it for is I take it, I cut it, I put a hole in it, and I put it between everything in my tripods. Here's the tripod, here's the camera, put a hole in it, drop it down, and then put the camera on. Doesn't go anywhere. It's there, okay? I don't know what it's called, but I think for $2 you get enough for 100 cameras.
So your camera doesn't.
So it doesn't move. So it doesn't move left or right or up or down. It just stays right where you put it. It's a trick. Okay. If you go to a mechanic, if you're walking past a mechanic, just walk in and say, can I have $1 worth of gloves? These gloves will save your life in cold weather, wet weather, changing a tire, getting a lens cap off, getting a filter off, and I recommend you could be, I mean, you really, you're a hero to carry one of these all the time, okay? And they're different than the gloves in the, you know, I usually steal them when I go to the hospital, but they're different. They're better. These are much stronger. I don't care what camera you own. I don't care how many cameras you own. I really don't care. None of my business. I don't care. Nikon, Canon, Sony. You gotta have one of these. This is an extension tube. Everybody know what an extension tube? Raise your hand. Greatest tool in the world, and I think they're as little as 20 and as much as 150. Pick your poison. You want a $20 one, get a $20 one. You want to spend 150, spend 100, spend whatever you want. I don't go anywhere without this. This will take any lens and turn it into a fabulous portrait lens. Okay? You know, you're photographing somebody going, I can't get close enough. Cha-chink, put it on, you get close enough. Absolutely necessary, in my opinion. For approximately 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, I told anybody who used a clear filter on their lens was an idiot. An idiot. An idiot. Why would you spend $1,900 for a lens and then put a $3 piece of glass in front of a $1,900 lens? You're an idiot. Until one day, I was photographing a guy with an arc welder, and I had a brand new 16 to 35 Canon lens, and I got this great shot. The shot's fabulous. As this piece of lit metal came and hit dead square in the middle. And I looked at it, I said, well, how bad could it be? And I went to get it off, and it didn't come off. So I had to wait for it to cool down. And then I just I took a razor blade and I didn't hit the glass. I'm not that stupid. And I popped it off. And I sent it back to Canon and said, no can fixo. Not a bad idea. I was wrong. Sorry. I wouldn't recommend it for all your photographs, but when you're in a situation where the proverbial blank is hitting the proverbial wall, you don't want it to hit your proverbial $1,500, $2,000 lens. Got it? This is a couple of shots with the extension tube.
Was that on the macro lens? Can you
It
put
is.
extension to-
That's on the macro lens. It didn't have to be. It could have been on the 70 to 200 f4, but it happened to be on the macro. Yes, it did. God bless you. This is in Africa. This is a water spider. That thing is gigantic. You could have used a wide angle lens on that thing. Now, I had a student in a workshop, and she was 89 years old. Sat there and listened to my gobbledygook. And she sat there very patiently when we were going through close-up. I said, yes. She said, I do it different. I said, you do? I do it different. I said, well, what do you do? She says, well, I take a regular filter and an extension tube, put the extension tube on the camera, put my wide angle lens on the extension tube. I put it to the closest focusing distance, and then I put leaves on the filter. And I shoot into the sunlight, so you now have a color X-ray of the leaf or the flower. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. I said, let me ask you a question. Can I steal that? She said, no, you can have it. You don't have to steal it. Just tell people who told you. I said, okay. So every time, that's what that is. That is the extension tube on the 16 to 35, closest focusing distance with the praying mantis on the top and shooting up into the sun. The point being, the minute that I stop learning from you, I'm dead. I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? I'm dead. You got to learn from everybody. Got it? So that's not my photo. That's her photo. Now, you can go downstairs or upstairs, and you can buy what I think is the future of lighting. These are LED lights, okay? I am not going to throw this in your face because I'm going to bounce it because it's very bright, okay? And a very dear friend of mine is the inventor of this particular light, and it is an amazing light. There's only one minor problem with the light. It's good to 300 feet underwater. Anybody here going to go 300 feet underwater? Tough sell because it's $190. Okay, so I said to him, you know, most of my friends in photography, you know, they go to an inch, half an inch, you know, range. 300 feet's a long way. So this is $1.79. Okay? Is it as bright? No. Is it as good? No. Does it work? It works. Okay? Now, this is a Sartec light, and this is a Lexar light. $179, $1.79. Got it? Now I warn you, in 12 weeks, this light's coming out as a studio light for almost nothing. I mean, like hundreds, small hundreds, little hundreds, not big hundreds, you know, like, but I'm talking nice light. Okay. We did that, we did that, we did this. Okay, now, let's go over here real quick. Okay, guys, you're going to have to take my word for this, or you can hang me. You can hang me down on 7th Avenue and Carmine Street. I was weaned on Kodachrome 1, Kodachrome 25, and Tri-X, Panatomic X, and that's it. So you know I'm not 29, I'm really 30. If you bathe yourself in the technology, the new Kodachrome 25 is ISO 800 in the cameras that are $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. It may not be the case in the cameras that are 79 and 179, but once you get up into the Canon 5D Mark III, then 800 is your new 25, and 3200 is your new Ektachrome. If you do not take advantage of it, you're fooling yourself, you're hurting yourself, and you're not really getting the most out of your photography. You're really not, okay? Because what is the major failure in any photo since 1838 to today? What? Lack of sharpness. What else?
Noise.
Motion blur. Camera motion. Camera motion is what's going to fail all the time. The camera's got to be rock steady. To get rock steady, you need to have a high shutter speed. High shutter speed, you want to be above 1,000 all the time and twice on Sunday. So that's the new stuff. Those two blocks that you're looking at, that's glass from the Nippon Kogaku factory from Japan when I was there. They gave me 2 pieces of optical glass. Now, there, in my opinion, that's a great photo. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. It really doesn't. I mean, you couldn't be, I mean, how vile is that? So, buy any brand you want. I don't care if you're photographing flowers, bugs, tools, guns, jewelry, people, dogs, cats, your girlfriend, your wife. This thing is, I don't know, 20 bucks. You got to have them. I mean, yeah, they're nothing. And I mean, it'll fit in a raincoat. But these things are just absolutely fabulous. You don't need an assistant. You don't need an assistant. You can clip it, you can hang it, you can do anything you want. I'd say 60% of the time I use it without an assistant. The only reason I put this in, and I mean no disrespect to National Geographic, they did an ad, which probably cost them $3 million, of this gorgeous model shooting a 600 f4, and he had the lens shade backwards on the lens. See the lens shade backwards? Which, in my opinion, is making a statement. I guess it's okay to do that. It's not okay to do that. You think they make that giant mop, you think they do that for their health? It's there to make a better photograph, okay? Use it. Use it. Anytime you can add a shade and another reflector to cut the light down, you're going to be able to make photos like that. And like that. Always carry a nickel, dime, or a quarter all the time. Get up in the morning, put a nickel, dime, or a quarter in your pocket, because that is your screwdriver. That is your screwdriver, because you're not going to carry a screwdriver. So always carry one. In my case, I carry a Canadian one in case I go over the border. This is, another secret. This is what we call a broken chicken wing. This is about the worst way you could hold a camera. Okay, that's called a broken chicken wing. If you're going to do this, do it this way. Tuck it under. Okay? Tuck it under. You don't want this, you do want this. Then again, some Italian-American guy at the Indianapolis 500, circa 1976, was talking to a gentleman by the name of Nonaka-san. And I said to Nonaka-san, I said, Nonaka, I said, the release here, we need a release here to fire the camera. And he sat there, and the two of us designed what was known as an MR1 release, which was the first vertical release. So I get credit for the first vertical release, and it's right there. And now it's on every camera that has that. So thank you. That's mine. Ask me how much money I got, and I'll punch your lights out. Okay, I'm going to make this quick. Got the camera, got the tripod, got the lens. I decide to walk 5 miles to a waterfall, get to the waterfall, ready to go, set the tripod up, fix everything up. Looks beautiful, everything's fine. No card. No card. What idiot, what moron, what jerk would walk 10 miles, 5 in and 5 out without a card? Okay. There's nothing you can do, you know. So I go back. I waited 3 or 4 days. I go back with 5 cards. Same thing. No battery. Okay, wait a week. You know, got batteries, got cards. Get ready to shoot. This time I only went a mile, went to a different waterfall. I was getting tired. Put the card in. What do you think came on the screen? Full. Do I know if that card's been downloaded? Regardless of your budget. The reason you see so many of those Lexar cards is because I went to Cuba and I decided to buy, I doubled up on all my cards because I intentionally didn't take a computer because we had no internet and there was no reason for me to have a computer. So what I would do is I'd shoot a card, turn it upside down, shoot a card, turn it upside down, shoot a card, turn it upside down. Came back, put it in the computer, and that's the way it is. So, I mean, they're so bloody inexpensive these days. So Lexar is my card of choice. I think it's the best. They make a lot of great cards. Whatever one you like is fine. We teach workshops all over the world. We just came back from Cuba. And how was your Cuba trip?
It was fantastic. It was the best.
Barbara was there, and she was one of our photographers and students, and it really was a great trip. We've got a whole bunch coming up, and we've got Gleason's Gym in Dumbo. So if you've never been to the oldest boxing gym in the world, the first one's going to be on a Saturday. We usually do it on a Sunday. This will be a Saturday, which will mean there are a lot of boxers there. And the prices are very, very reasonable. Anyone who has the card, lift up your card, 10% off if you just shoot a picture of the card and send it to me, okay? The guys who didn't get cards, we'll work something out, all right? We're going to be going to Israel. I haven't figured out Israel. We'll be going to Iceland. I haven't given a date on Iceland. And we've got the Indianapolis, the Pocono 500, which obviously will not be done on the race day, but it'll be done on practice days, and go-karts. We've got rodeo. You've done rodeo?
Twice.
You did rodeo? How's rodeo?
Rodeo's a lot of fun.
Rodeo's a lot of fun, and we didn't hurt any animals, or albums for that matter. So we've got a bunch coming up. What else? Monticello Raceway, private raceway that's open to people like Seinfeld. He's a member. Andretti is a member. What's the guy who just quit the night date, late night? Leno's a member. These are all very, very, this is a private club. You can't get in. They allow me in twice a year with 4 students. Not 44, but 4. Most, we keep everything under 10, but those will be that. So let's go, and we'll do what I forgot to do real quick. Oh, and we have Cuba, which is almost sold out. Cuba is November 17th to the 24th. And believe it or not, from Miami, 6 of the people who went on the first trip are going back. Oh, I don't know how to get these things. Here we go, stuff I left out. This is Monticello. This is what you'll be photographing there. This is me laying down, making a photograph. Down on your knees. Change your angle. That's also Pocono. So you get to photograph 2 races at Pocono, the NASCARs and the go-karts. This is Gleason's. This is one of our big classes. We won't have any big classes anymore. They'll all be pretty much 10 or under. That's Yuri Foreman, former middleweight champion of the world. That's a reflection of Yuri fighting, the bag. This is one of my favorite portraits of Yuri. He's now a full ordained rabbi. Now, this is a friend of mine, Menachem, from Jerusalem, and he just sent me this photograph in Israel, and I looked at it, and I said, Menachem, what's with this thumb? What's with the thumb? So if you read, he sent this from Istanbul. He finally realized that he was holding the camera wrong, and he wasn't getting as sharp a photo as he could. So, can everybody read that? Okay. Israel is coming. I put this in. This was just, I played with it in Photoshop. I very rarely play with anything in Photoshop, but there was just something about this that I loved. I use the program in the Mac computer, Preview, and I work it very quickly. It's just not my thing. This is an example of the rodeo. The rodeo is only 60 miles from here. Most of the time the bulls win, so no one gets hurt. Well, what you get is a press pass. When you go in with me, you go in with a press pass. So that's how you get close. Right, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, she knows. Barbara's been to a lot of my programs. Cuba, November 17th to the 24th, almost sold out. This is just a few frames. And I think, now, let me ask you a question. What is the exposure for the moon in the camera? 250 f8. What ISO? Anybody else? Both of them right. The exposure for the moon is the same as the exposure for daylight because it's reflected daylight. Now, if you want to get closer to the moon, what do? Excuse me? No. That's true. Spaceship works. You just walk closer. Walk closer. If you walk closer, it works out pretty well. Canon 5D Mark III, 100 millimeter macro. I walk into a room and I see all of the icicles. So the first thing I do is I get a camera. I'm always trying to do something different, so I took the large icicle and I broke it off and I put it into a bucket of snow, well not a bucket, but a thing of snow, next to my American flag and came up with this. I didn't like that, so I did this, and that's the one that I liked. Yes, it's been trimmed and cut and everything else, but if you've ever seen a photographer in a museum look at a photograph and under his breath or her breath they go, I'm not going to use the word, I wish I took that. Ooh, I wish I took that photo. You know what word we're using, right? So I want you to look at what I consider, in my opinion, after the 2 years I've been in photography, in my opinion, I photographed presidents, vice presidents, secretary of states, Paul Newman a bunch of times, and lots of very famous people. When Joanne Kalish, who's my partner, got this assignment, I would be lying if I told you I didn't know who Will Barnett was. And then when I found out who he was, I realized that he was the greatest living American artist of our time. And you talk about a difficult assignment. She got the assignment from Arts and Antiques magazine, and it took a year to get the assignment, and then another 6 months to get it dated, and then he canceled. And then he canceled a second time. And Joanne, considering that she's very dedicated to her art and her craft, went ahead and continued to gingerly push. And the photos that she did, he's been photographed literally by hundreds of thousands of photographers, and considered Joanne's the best photo ever taken to him. And he was 101 years old. And there are very few people that can actually are able to relate to someone with that power. When you photograph somebody with power, like Lyndon Baines Johnson or Dr. Kissinger, when you walk in, you actually feel the power. I mean, it's like, it's three-dimensional power. This man has 10-dimensional power. When I met him, I was in tears. I was crying like a baby. He couldn't see it, but I was crying like a baby. And she was able to generate definitively the best work ever done in over 80 years of him being photographed. And none of the photos are set up, none of the photos are staged, none of it, I mean, it's just, It's on one hand extremely simple, and on the other hand, multi layers of complex, very, very complex. Personally, I love the photo so much that I actually bought one, paid for it, and put it over my desk. That's the one photo that hangs directly over my desk. And when Joanne offered it to me I said, no, I want to pay for it. I want to own it. If you ever have an opportunity to go to one of her lectures, if you ever have an opportunity to go to one of her workshops, if you ever have an opportunity to meet her, I strongly recommend you do. This was his favorite photograph. Not Joanne's favorite, but his favorite. So Joanne, you want to stand up and say hello to the people? Okay, guys, I can go on for 2 or 3 hours, but let me say this. I want to thank David. I want to thank B&H. You know what? I want to thank you. The most important value to me, the most important thing to me is not a Ferrari or a Maserati or a summer home. It's time. Time is the most valuable thing to me. So you gave me your 2 hours of time. I gave you mine. So thank you for coming and thank you for your time. And I hope to see you on the road again. So thanks an awful lot. Thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.